Hey everybody, we're the Benchwarmers. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host and friend Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I've spent a lot of I had a good yontif, a nice month of reflection and holidays. How was yours?
Good. I should say to our listeners, we've been off for the last little while. Hard to get together and find time to talk during
Last
the
week we were
series of
busy
holidays.
finishing and restarting the Torah.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I just wrote a check to someone with 5784 on it. I have to get that back, but one of these years.
We've got I have some personal news to share.
That's exciting.
5785. I'm taking my son and my wife, but my family is traveling on Saturday to New York City.
Oh, that's exciting. No sports while you're there, though, huh? Are you seeing anything?
While we're there. The Yankees could be playing in Game 7 of the World Series, although it looks very unlikely.
Right.
Should we be there on Saturday? But he's going to see Hymietown for all of its glory.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we call it that. It's called that by some non friends of the Jews, but
yes.
Yeah, so We should start off at the top. I mean, it is World Series time. Not a lot of Jewish angles on this. No Jewish players made it for the Yankees or the Dodgers. Scott Efros has been with the Yankees. He didn't pitch last year, and he just came back from injury this year. I think he pitched in 3 games in the regular season with the Yankees.
There is the Yankees bench coach, however, is Brad Ausmus, former Team Israel manager, and notable Jew in baseball.
Sure,
Brad Ausmus. I don't know if anyone has been to the Bagel World at Bathurst and Lawrence but they used to have a Brad Ausmus poster for a very long time.
That's nice.
There was a Brad Ausmus poster at Bagel World.
He's been a manager twice now with the Tigers, and then I think it was just 1 year with the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll get another shot. He's a young guy.
Absolutely,
only 55. So I think he'll get. Being a bench coach is usually I'm sticking around doing that. I also want to mention that Game 1, the first pitch was thrown out by Dodgers alumnus Steve Yeager, a convert to Judaism. So nice to see him out there. He was one of the.
You don't see that very often.
Yeah, he was honoring Fernando Valenzuela. But otherwise, I mean, aside from the fans, I would say I feel like most of our listeners in the States are Dodgers or Yankees fans. The Dodgers probably have one of the more Jewish fan bases, given their prominent location in 2 Jewish cities during their history, and obviously the Sandy connection and other prominent Jews who have been part of the team, but not this year. So I think there's lots of chances.
I think it's the Sandy Koufax facing Ron Blomberg World Series, or I believe it's pronounced Bloomberg, spelled Blomberg. The Sandy Koufax Ron Bloomberg, lifetime battle.
Yeah,
and when most people see Dodgers and Yankees, that's what we see.
Right,
Koufax and Bloomberg.
Yeah, so not a lot of Jewish angles there, but excited for the fans and all the Jewish fans, especially the Dodgers, who look like, as we're taping this, they're going to win the World Series. They're winning Game 3 as we're taping.
Their general manager Andrew Friedman. He is Jewish.
Yeah.
So we can celebrate for Andrew Friedman.
And, there's another sort of high holiday of sorts that today represents, not an officially recognized one, certainly not on the Jewish calendar, but it's a sports equinox, which means that all 4 major North American sports leagues have games on. It's only the 31st in history.
The Adar 2 of the sports calendar.
Sure. It only happens in April. Sorry, not April. It only really happens in October and maybe November, right? Like when basketball has started up again. And all 4 sports are in swing,
and hockey and
exactly. And we want to take that opportunity to do a little NBA preview. We talked last episode about the NHL starting up. More Jews in the NHL than the NBA right now, but there are some pretty prominent Jewish players in the NBA who we wanted to give some shine to this year. First off is of course Denny Avdia, currently the only Israeli player in the NBA. He was the first round 9th overall pick back in 2020 by the Washington Wizards. And he has found new environs this year. He's starting for the Portland Trailblazers. He was traded as part of a, sort of some draft pick swap and salary issues. He was traded after the season last year from Washington, who I think is trying to lose as many games as possible. To Portland,
and he's too good.
Exactly. He was. He got some. I think he got a few votes for most improved player last year. He averaged 14.5 points per game last year. He's too good now for Washington, which is exciting. Sort of interesting. Like this is a change of pace in Portland, which probably not going to have a great team this year, but I think it gives him a big spot to really get some play.
And agreed. And Portland is actually one of the more Jewish cities in America, not by like total size, but something like 2.5% of Portlanders are Jews.
Really?
Yeah, which is much higher than most other places in America. It's got a really strong Jewish community that like is older than, the states being a state itself. It's, since the early 1800s, Jews have sort of found the warm climate and rain of Portland nice and homely.
Sure. Like Carrie Brownstein,
Exactly. Gary Brownstein being the first notable Portland Jew, the second one being Denny of Dia.
That's right. If there was still a Portlandia, I think he could be in a skit. But unfortunately, that's gone away. But I think Denny is sort of at a make or break point. He's still incredibly young. Like I think
yes.
we don't always realize how young NBA players are. But like even Denny, like his first NBA season, he was 20, which is like pretty much the median starting age for NBA players these days.
Yeah, you get a lot of teenagers. It's rare to have like a 25-year-old rookie like you'd have in hockey or baseball.
Right. And it's sort of amazing because like I would, I haven't looked this up, but I would imagine that the median starting age for NBA players, even like 25 years ago, would have been like 22. Like you pretty much had everyone play 3 or 4 years of college ball and then start, or, if they were coming over from Europe, there were people like Arvydas Sabonis who came over, when he was like 32 or something like that. Like, so for Denny to be starting out pretty young and to get thrown into a different country, a different way of playing basketball, I think it's, it's pretty admirable how far he's come, being a guy who's, again, like 14.7 points and 7.2 rebounds per game last year. This year he at least in the first 3 games, like he's averaging more than a steal and a block per game. Like he's contributing.
So he's a real like, we don't use this term in basketball, but he's a real 5-tool jack of all trades.
Yeah.
He's playing defense, he's scoring, he's rebounding. Good for him.
Yeah, that's right. And his shooting was pretty good last year. He shot over 50% from the field, 374 from 3. Hasn't really clicked yet this year, but again, we're only through 3 games. So look, if you're a West Coast listener, if you're somebody who's willing to stay up late for the West Coast games, something that's a little difficult for me, a father of 2 young children on an average weekday night,
on a school night.
Yeah, I gotta say, like from a league pass standpoint, it's gonna be harder to keep an eye on Portland this year. But check out Denny if they're playing an East Coast team. I know for a lot of people, basketball is like people don't really check in on basketball until after the new year, like after football's over. But there's always good basketball, and it's like for me, I think like after baseball is gone, I need something that's just like there in the background every day, even if I'm not paying much attention to it. Yeah, and football's usually 3 or 4 days a week, depending on if you're watching college. So keep an eye on Denny is the point I want to make. Another Jewish player we wanted to mention is the son of the guy we just talked about.
Yes, and even in the same division, we're going to stick in the Pacific Division.
Is Sacramento Portland? No, Portland's Northwest, isn't it?
Then we're going to stick in the Western
Conference. That's right. And we're talking, of course, about Domantas Sabonis, who is trying to lead the Kings back to the playoffs after
the Melech, as we call them. He's the Melech of the Kings.
So Domantas Sabonis is the son of legendary Euro baller Arvydas Sabonis. I think he was born in Portland. I think he is also from, like, Domantas was born in the U.S. I know he like can play for Latvia, but went to Gonzaga, and
he's been a West Coast American Jew pretty much his whole life.
Yeah, so he married a Jewish woman, and according to an article from a year and a half ago, he was in the process of converting. Haven't gotten any update from that since.
Yeah, it's a process. There's a lot of classes.
Yeah,
you have to take a lot of classes.
Yeah,
And he has, he spends 5 nights a week playing basketball.
Yeah, and he will be, if and when he converts, he'll be the best Jewish player pretty much we've had during their playing days since at least since Dolce's. Domantas was, he got MVP votes last year for the second year in a row. He is like a steady, reliable 20 points and 13 rebounds guy. Like he's
been fantastic. And he's been one. I mean, I consider this personally, a Jewish trait, but he's pretty much gotten better and more effective every single year he's been in the league.
Yeah.
He had his first All-Star season during the pandemic with Indiana. And since then, he's just sort of slowly gotten better and better and better off that peak, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, he had a pretty significant showdown with LeBron in Sacramento's second game the other night. Really put up a big number. He is the leader of their team, obviously along with, De'Aaron Fox. But he's really the guy. The offense runs through him a lot of the time.
Aaron Fox, a much, much more Jewish name than Domantas Sabonis. And I know it's De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. Aaron Fox,
it's almost Aaron Fox.
And joined this year by our beloved former Raptor DeMar DeRozan. So I think they're off to a slow start, but it's going to be an interesting team to watch.
So if you take away the D's there, you've got Aaron Fox and Mar Rosen.
Yeah, Mara Rosen. Yeah, it's not bad.
It could be like a 85-year-old woman. I think
Aaron Fox and Murray Rosen definitely have been on a shul board of trustees.
Yes. Yeah, the two guys drinking out of a vodka bottle at the Prosserman Y.
That's right. Anyways, Domas was in the Netflix TV show Starting Five. So if anyone wants to get a more insight into what's going on with him and his life, I watched some of it. I would say the formula from the F1 series that has now been duplicated like a dozen times
every sport
is not quite making it. It hasn't been bad. I haven't watched all of them. I watched the golf one. Friend of the pod, Dan Rappaport, was on. I watched a fair amount of that. I didn't watch any of the wide receiver show, which seemed to be
okay.
I heard it was just about like wide receivers are psychopaths, and like that's what they have to be for some reason.
Pretty much.
Starting Five, I watched some of it. It was interesting. There is a fair amount of shush Sabonis though. So if you want to get more insight into it, was about his life and raising young kids and what it means.
Is she shush or is she shushy?
I think she's Shoshana. I think she's a shosh, but we would love to have the Sabonises on and ask more questions about that. And
the Saboni
and find out where they're at with their conversion. I hope he as soon as he becomes Jewish, like automatically adopts a Litvak mentality and air of superiority. I think that would be very funny.
Yes, absolutely.
not quite authentic Litvak.
Good call to the Litvak, by the way. That's fantastic.
The other Jewish NBA player or two-way player at this point that we wanted to shout out was Amari Bailey. Again, I want to stress the impossibility, but amazing fact that there have been two guys named Amari who have played in the National Basketball Association, and both of them are Jewish.
It's pretty amazing.
So Amari was a second-round pick last year by the Charlotte Hornets. I think he was dropped or waived by them. He played 10 games in the NBA last year as a sort of two-way player. He was picked up by the Brooklyn Nets and waived when they made their last preseason cuts. So he's joining the Long Island Nets, the G League team. Again, a very young guy, a very raw talent. He's only 20 years old. I think there is more precedent these days for a guy developing in the G Leagues and making some run. I hope that he gets a chance to do that. It's tough to say. I mean, a lot of guys prefer going to Europe and getting everyday minutes. It can be tough. I think it's more like a minor league system. Playing in the Long Island Nets is probably not that bad. Like I think they play at Nassau, right? So like you can live in New York or outside New York.
Yeah, it's not, and you're close enough. You're close to Brooklyn, and you could get called up. Like it's not Sioux City. It's not Sioux City. It's not Sioux City. It's not Raptors 905. I have to say.
Disrespect to Sioux City.
Again, you gotta respect. He is grinding, right? He is still chasing the dream, and will continue to. which, as I said earlier, is a really impressive thing to do, similar to the sort of grinding we see Sabonis is doing, but maybe not quite at the same level of success.
Yeah. And looking forward a little bit, I just want to mention Ben Saraf, who is an Israeli player, who's being projected to likely be a pick next year in the NBA draft. He's currently playing with a team in Ulm, I think in southern Germany. And I honestly, I don't really follow Eurobasket. Like I don't really keep up with when those leagues run and things like that. I think it'll be for the next several months at least. He has played for Israel internationally on the U16 team and the U18 team, and I think he was an MVP of one of those tournaments. I can't remember if it was a world like a European U18 tournament, but I think it was. And he's a small guy, 6'5". Small by basketball standards.
Small for basketball standards.
Tall by any other standards, including.
I was going to say large for cultural standards, small for basketball standards.
Yeah, he's going to be coming in as a young guy, but the mock drafts I've seen have had him like as a lottery pick. Obviously a lot can change between now and then. There's a lot of American guys who their stock will go up or go down depending on how they do in the NCAA tournament. I think for the European guys, their status is a little more inelastic. You know what I mean? Just because like whatever tape there is on them is probably not that different. So if assuming he comes out next year, it would be interesting to see where he ends up. He would be the first lottery pick since Danny, obviously.
Have Jews.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just a real feeling that, he's an incredibly versatile player. He's someone who can make plays. He's someone who can drive. Again, if you happen to be in Southern Germany or have Eurobasket on your
on your IPTV, on your league pass,
on your cable package, keep an eye out for Ben Saraf. I think he's an exciting player, and I think we're going to see a lot more of him in the next year. So those are the big, I would say, Jewish NBA angles this year. I think I would love to hear more people or talk to someone about Israeli basketball. Obviously, basketball is a huge sport in Israel. We should say as well that former NBA player Patrick Beverley has been playing in Israel and seems to be really embracing the culture.
He fasted on Yom Kippur, did a full no water fast.
Yeah. He's playing for Tel Aviv, one of the sort of dominating teams in the Israeli basketball Premier League. He's really embraced being in Israel. I think people have gotten a kick out of his tweets about fasting and things like that. It's long-time NBA player. Like I think he could have gotten an NBA contract. Like he played last year, and he was traded, I think, to Milwaukee late in the season, or he was he was signed late in the season.
He was signed, but it's. I think he's there just for I would call it, to be a star. Nate Robinson still had some gas in the tank when he went there. It's sort of probably the best league in the world that isn't in America or China. We've been saying to a lot of guys, get ready to learn Chinese when their career is sort of at the end.
Get ready to learn Hebrew.
Get ready to learn Hebrew is something when they have a little bit of gas left in the tank.
Definitely.
It's exciting to see him. I had a conversation with our Israeli sports writer a couple of weeks ago about hockey, and he put somebody onto us, or put us onto somebody who we want to share about sort of now that we're getting into the World Rugby season.
Oh, okay.
We don't spend a lot of time talking about rugby on this podcast, as we don't really play it in Canada at a good level. We have a national team. They're not very good.
Sure.
I mean, they're good, but they're not, world class. But there is a budding superstar who was the young South African player of the year last year, 22 years old, Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu.
Oh, wow.
He is, pardon?
Quite a name.
It's quite a name. Called on Reddit, perhaps the most interesting, diverse name in the world. He is, a prime I would say he is a very good example of Mandela's Rainbow Nation.
Okay.
His grandfather, his Jewish grandfather, was was an artist who was a very prominent anti-apartheid activist. He made posters for the anti-apartheid movement as an artist. His grandfather was, and his mother is Zulu, and his father is Jewish, and he is very much into both cultures. He wears both names on his jersey, and he is, seen as sort of the next generation leader of the Springboks.
Wow.
As we get into the World Cup, which I think is in the next World Cup would be in 2027. Okay. He's expected to be a really, really big part of the South African team. Something that came out a couple of months ago, which we wanted to talk about, he's seen as a generational talent, really the future of rugby. A video of him came out about 2 months ago of him addressing his team, speaking to his 15 and under team. He was 13 years old at the time. The 2015 end of season braai. Talking, just sort of reflecting on the season, hyping up his team and coaches. Already the leader back then.
Wow.
He was an inspiration then, and he's sort of an inspiration now. And we'll be keeping an eye on Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu for a long time. He could maybe get this little Jewish podcast into rugby. And if there are any South Africans who spend a lot of time still following the Springboks, there's a 22-year-old superstar who we'd love to talk about.
That's very exciting. Moving from the rugger to gridiron football.
Let's stick with oblong. Let's stick with the oblong shape.
It is time for your regular Jake Retzlaff BYU update. He is. It
turns out that Rabbi was right. What BYU has needed for the last 25 years is more Jewish quarterbacks.
Yeah. So just to catch everybody up, Brigham Young University, named after one of the early leaders of the Latter-day Saints Church, is a institution in Utah for the higher education of Mormons.
Known for its extremely strict behavioral policy.
That's right. You're not allowed to do any of the things that you would want to do in college aside from studying. And
I think any of the things you'd want to do in life. There's no caffeine allowed, no alcohol.
I think you can do caffeine now. No, I think the Mormons have come around on caffeine. I think they're good.
I mean, good for them, but are you sure?
Not coffee, but soda's a big deal there. You think it's all uncaffeinated? Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like how in Utah where all the beer is low alcohol. Maybe all the soda is caffeine free. They just have their own special bottling plants. Okay. We'll have to get the CJN's cultural relations division to reach out to a couple of Mormons and get on this.
But no smoking, no swearing, no sex.
No swearing is also. I don't know if I could handle that one more. We tend to clean it up for the ears of this podcast.
Anyways, they have a football team, and their football team is quarterbacked by Jake Retzlaff, a young Jewish man who has BYU undefeated into October and ranked 9th in the nation, and leading the Big 12. And
absolutely, yeah, it
is going as well as it possibly. I mean, you win all your games. They've beaten a few ranked opponents. They don't have any left. Like their games, the rest of the season are not against. They're not lightweights. Like this is the conference.
It is the Big 12.
Yeah, it's the Big 12. Like this is the conference part of the schedule. There's no getting around having to play real games. But they have beaten everyone so far, and they have Utah, who's 1-4. They have Kansas, who's Utah's 1-4 in their conference. They're 3-5 overall. They have Kansas, who's 2-6 overall. Arizona State is 5-2, probably the best team they have left, and then they have Houston at the end of the year for who are currently 3-5. All of those are winnable games.
Absolutely.
2 at home, 2 on the road. After that, they're going to have the Big 12 championship. And that is definitely going to be their biggest challenge. It also may not matter. And say
they could already, if they go into that championship game, I guess they would be 9-1. They're probably going to make the playoffs anyway.
Okay, again, I appreciate college football is not always at the top of everyone's mind. So just to give some background here, this is the first year that college football or Division One, what used to be called Division One college football, is
now
going to be having
the Football Bowl Series.
Yeah, football bowl subdivision. Yeah,
subdivision. Oh well, excuse me.
This is the first year that they're going to be having a 12-team playoff. It's not a guarantee that it's the 12 biggest teams, but like there's some finagling for smaller teams if they make it. BYU doesn't quite qualify, even though they're a relatively small program, because they're in the Big 12. However, BYU and Iowa State are both undefeated. They both play in the Big 12. If both of them remain undefeated and they don't play each other in the regular season, they're going to face off in the Big 12 championship game this year. If they do that, based on where they're both standing, like they're 9 and 11 right now, they are both going to be top 10 teams. And honestly, if they're both undefeated in 5 weeks, they're probably going to be like 6 and 4. Like, just because everybody else plays each other at least once. In all likelihood, both of those teams are going to make the 12-team playoffs. Again, on the caveat that they both remain undefeated through the Big 12 championship game. It would be hard to leave off one of those teams who had an undefeated regular season and lost in the championship game of, again, the third biggest conference in college football right now, and includes some, also ran 3-loss Big Ten team or something like that. So it is likely now that BYU, improbably quarterbacked by Jake Retzlaff,
exactly, but the Jewish quarterback
is going to be in the college football playoffs, and we haven't had this level of success with a starter since Josh Rosen briefly had UCLA in the top 10. I don't think they were never really in contention for a playoff spot.
They were never really charging.
Yeah. JT Daniels was the backup quarterback at Georgia when they won the national championship a few years ago. Again, didn't get any playing time at Georgia. We talked about his career otherwise, but it's a big deal. I mean, I think this is like, if you win if you make it to the semifinals, like making it pretty far, that's going to get attention on him from NFL teams.
He's already getting attention. It's interesting. He's got, I think, 1 year left of eligibility after this one. This is his fourth year of playing, and he's got a transfer.
I think he's a redshirt year. He came from junior college, so I think that he has at least another year.
So I would say this is probably for every young, struggling academic Jewish child out there. This is proof that you can succeed with community college.
Absolutely,
something for you to tell all of your parents.
Yeah,
it's very important. A couple of weeks ago, Yom Kippur. We haven't spoken since then. Us and you, Jamie and I, and us and you, the listener. He actually played on Yom Kippur. Retzlaff did.
Yeah.
Some of
that being a really moving experience.
Exactly.
I think not the first or the last Jew to do something important on Yom Kippur that's sort of work related. You can have whatever feelings about that you want. I think if you think that's a betrayal, then you're welcome to feel that way.
Interestingly, the Mormon writer for The Atlantic, McKay Coppins, spoke about being a BYU football fan and being scared that Retzlaff would take the day off and ruin the season. It's a lot of Mormons have learned a lot about Jewish custom, throughout this season, and I think Retzlaff has been very good about sharing about that. He brought a kosher food truck to practice.
Of any school, BYU would have been more understanding about it than anywhere else because, they don't play games on their Sabbath. Like they've had basketball games moved from Sundays.
They've got a bunch tournament. Of kooky rules as well that they got to follow.
So there's some commonalities there. I don't really think of Jews and Mormons having a ton to do with each other most of the time, mostly just as a quirk of geography.
As a curio.
But I got to say, I think Jewish and Mormon football fans are cheering for the same guy for the next, hopefully
next
2.5
weeks.
Hopefully next 2.5 months. I mean, I want to see him on New Year's Day. I want to see him, on the third night of Hanukkah, lighting up the scoreboard. Late Hanukkah this year.
That's right.
If you haven't, it's late Hanukkah this year.
We thought he only had enough koyach for one touchdown.
That's right.
But he had enough koyach to last 8 more games.
Yeah. So keep an eye out, guys. Like I know we've been talking about him for a while now. There's only 4 games left in BYU's schedule. They're going to be strong favorites in all of them. They're going to be probably favorites going into the Big 12 championship game if they make it. And Jake Retzlaff may well be starting in a playoff game.
He's also launched his own BY Jew merch. So if you ever decide to fly the flag of being Jewish at BYU, that's where you could buy that shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there's any Jews out in Arizona, sorry, there are if there's any listeners out in Arizona, certainly there's Jews out there. They're going to be in Tempe to play Arizona State on November 23rd. Great opportunity to go see Jake Retzlaff and cheer him on.
I should send my dad.
Yeah, you should. He can be our correspondent.
He can be our correspondent. Yeah, call in from the Retzlaff Bowl. ASU is one of the more Jewish schools in America, so
sure.
It's entirely possible that he's going to have a lot of, a lot of fans that opposing fans cheering for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, there is one more big Jewish sports story I want to talk about, which is Max Greyserman. Came in second at the Zozo Championship. The Zozo is in Japan. It's only 5 years old. Like they started doing it relatively recently.
What does Zozo do?
I have no idea. I'm going to say like car parts or manufacturing, maybe.
Keep going on, and I'm going to look this up.
Okay, absolutely. The Zozo is a weird championship. It takes place in October in Japan, but it is like the big Japanese PGA event. Like it is I think it's both a PGA Tour and PGA Japan event. I would say it's one of the bigger tournaments on the fall PGA schedule now, right? Is that fair to say? Like, there's nothing really big
yes,
between
it's
now. It's
become a sort of a big event.
Yeah, Tiger Woods won the initial one in 2019, and it is unfortunately like oddly broadcast, where like they do line it up so that they play in golf in Japan, like more or less at prime time North America time. But like, it's also on during like football and the World Series, and can be and it's hard to find on your TV, I will say.
Yes, it's bizarre. By the way, Zozo is a sort of a measure at home, order online custom clothes company.
Okay, well, I was way off.
Pardon?
I was way off, but that's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
So it's like Uniqlo, I guess, or more,
or Indochino, which I'm not sure still exists.
Okay, sure. Anyways, Max Greyserman had a great tournament. He was under par every day. He finished 19 under. He lost by a stroke. He went into the last hole tied for the lead with Nico Echeverria, who ended up winning. He almost drained I don't know what it was, 40, 50 foot putt that would have been for birdie and which would have sent it to a playoff. He had a bogey-free round. Like he didn't bogey on the back nine, but he just couldn't get a putt to go in, basically.
Puts a bow on a really sort of breakout year and a breakout fall for Greyserman. You know, he hasn't played. This is his first tournament in over 2 months, but it's his third second place finish in his last 5 tournaments,
which is unbelievable. Like I just want to like underline this. It was his rookie year. Like he came in second 3 times. Yes, he blew it at the Wyndham Championship. We've talked about this. He had a quadruple bogey on like 13 or 14 or something like that. He is going to have those ups and downs just based on the way he plays and being a young guy. But to have
an aggressive player, it's going to happen.
Oh, for sure. But to have 3 runner-ups in your first year is amazing. He's ranked 42nd in the world now. After
he's up to 42nd. He made almost $5 million this year. Like he had a great season.
Which also means that I don't like. Again, I haven't gone into the ephemera of each tournament for the coming year, but he has his card, so he'll play every PGA event. I'm pretty sure being 42nd in the world means he'll basically play every signature event at the minimum.
Yes, I think it's top 50 gets into every signature event, and it gets him into every major.
Yeah.
Also, so if he stays in the top 50, he'll play in every major, which he didn't do this year.
No, that's right.
It would be a huge opportunity to get more Jewish guys in the majors. Another, follow-up from this tournament is that I think he finished in about 30th, Ben Silverman officially retained his tour card for the next year.
That's great. We're at the point now where there's plenty of tournaments now where we're having 4 or 5 of Jewish players in the tournaments. Now that Daniel Berger is relatively healthy again, he's back to playing a pretty solid schedule. Max Homa obviously, had a tough 2024, but obviously, is going to be competing tournament in, tournament out. And David Lipsky, who's been playing, making some cuts and will be playing a fair number of events as well.
He absolutely is making cuts. So to actually put a bow on it, Ben is going to finish the year in 109th, which means he gets to keep his tour card.
Okay.
He also finished Birdie Eagle, which probably are the 2 holes that kept him up in that ranking.
Wow.
Which is extremely impressive.
Quite a way to finish. So yeah, I know golf is not top of the mind for everyone right now, but hey, it's going to be April sooner than you think. You just got to get over winter. I think
right.
there's something about watching golf in January and February on TV that's makes me excited for the end of winter and makes me yearn for the golf
Sony
season.
Open is only 9 weeks away. And
That's
when
right.
the Sony Open happens, the Century Tournament of Champions is only 9 weeks away. And when we see that's when it gets exciting.
I will say that, like, from a personal level, like, being more into golf is like very, like, I love it. I love watching golf on TV. I love playing golf, obviously, but like watching PGA golf all the time is like there's so much of it when it's on. It's just like every round, if you watch an entire round, like you're talking about like pretty much 9 till 6, like no, genuinely
on all day, 4 days a week.
Yeah, 10 hours, 4 days a week. And so, sometimes you're watching it and you're just like, well, there's nothing I'd rather do, and like I could do this all day. Obviously not on
it's as friend of the pod, Dan Rapport would say, it's for the real sickos.
Yeah, exactly. So I find that I'm just like increasingly watching even like 3rd and 4th tier golf tournaments on the weekend, and just like it's in the background, and this is real, like, aging into something. It's
your version of slow TV. On Netflix there's like trains that go on.
Right. I like it. It's just a good background to have. It's green, there's people talking quietly. It's not going to wake up a sleeping child.
It's really how I like to live my life.
Yeah.
Quietly and with, foliage.
Yeah. So keep an eye on Max. There's interesting fall tournaments going on, and pretty exciting to see him really just nailing it. I think he's going to win a tournament in 2025. And
he's got a very good chance.
Definitely going to be competing. So yeah, really exciting stuff going on in the world of Jews and sports the last few weeks. And lots of good stories to keep an eye on. There's always there'll be more football stories, and we'll check back in a few weeks with how Jake Retzlaff is doing. Before we go, we should always shout out that we're brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News. You can find our podcast and content wherever you get your podcasts and on the Canadian Jewish News' website, the cjn.ca. We're produced by Michael Fraiman. Michael is the creator of Justice, a Holocaust zombie story, a narrative podcast that the CJN has put out. And there's a live event happening on Wednesday, October 30th at the Toronto Holocaust Museum that you can go check out if you want to support.
The producer is becoming the produced.
That's right. Check out the event, the details of the event on the Canadian Jewish News website, and follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers, where we will be stress tweeting Max Greyserman final rounds at 2 a.m.
Oh, I thought you were going to say stress tweeting the election for the next 8 days, but we'll also be stress tweeting Max Greyserman final rounds.
That's right. If there's golf on November 5th, then we'll be watching that. November 5th, we'll just like focus on like a DeMontis Sabonis game or something like that, instead of whatever else is going on in the world. Keep ourselves sane. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening.